The evening sky turned deep purple as Captain Maya Johnson drove home from the police station. After 15 years on the force and 6 years as a captain, she had seen it all. Today had been particularly rough. Budget meetings, staff evaluations, and a community outreach program that needed her personal attention. All she wanted now was to get home, kick off her shoes, and maybe have a glass of wine while watching that show everyone kept talking about. Maya had changed out of her uniform before leaving, slipping into jeans and a simple blue blouse. Her badge and service weapon were tucked away in her bag on the passenger seat. She wasn't on duty anymore, just a woman heading home after work. The flash of red and blue lights in her rearview mirror caught her by surprise. Maya checked her speedometer. She was going exactly the limit. Maybe a taillight was out. She signaled and pulled over to the shoulder, waiting calmly as she had done countless times from the other side of the traffic stop. Through her mirror, Maya watched the officer take his time, strutting toward her car. Something about his walk made her uneasy, that swagger some cops developed when they thought the badge made them untouchable. She rolled down her window and placed both hands on the steering wheel, visible. "License and registration," the officer demanded without even a hello. Maya glanced at his nameplate, Officer Wilson. "Good evening, Officer Wilson. May I ask why I was pulled over?" Maya kept her voice steady and polite, the way she'd trained hundreds of officers to interact with the public. Wilson's face hardened when he looked at her. His eyes narrowed, scanning her face, her hair, her skin tone. Something shifted in his expression. "I said license and registration. You people always think you can question everything." "You people." The words hung in the air between them. Maya felt that familiar knot form in her stomach, the one she'd felt countless times before joining the force and still occasionally felt, even as a captain. "Of course, officer. My license is in my wallet, and the registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for them now, okay?" She narrated her movements clearly, the way she taught citizens to do during traffic stops. Wilson didn't respond, just watched her with cold eyes as she slowly retrieved her documents. Maya handed them over, making sure her fingers didn't brush against his, a small habit she'd developed over years of dealing with people who didn't want to be touched by someone like her. The officer glanced at her license, then did a double take at her address in one of the nicer neighborhoods in town. "This your current address? How long you been living there?" His tone suggested he didn't believe her. "Yes, almost 8 years now," Maya replied evenly. "Must be nice," he muttered, the implication clear in his voice. "Sit tight." As Wilson walked back to his patrol car, Maya took a deep breath. She could call this in, tell dispatch who she was, have them inform this officer he was currently harassing the head of internal affairs. But something stopped her. How many people experienced this same treatment without having a captain's badge to protect them? Maya watched in her mirror as Wilson talked into his radio. His body language had changed. He seemed agitated now, gesturing with his free hand. What had he found? Her record was spotless. When he returned, his face was flushed with anger. He wasn't holding her license anymore. It was clenched in his fist. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. "May I ask why, officer?" "I don't understand what." "I said get out of the car. Now." Wilson's voice rose sharply. A passing car slowed down, the driver watching the scene unfold. Maya's heart pounded, but her mind remained clear. This was no longer about her getting home to relax. This was about documenting every second of what was happening. Because tomorrow, Officer Wilson would have some explaining to do. She didn't know it yet, but this traffic stop was about to change everything. For her, for Wilson, and for the entire department. Maya took a deep breath and opened her car door slowly. The evening air felt suddenly cold against her skin. She stepped out, standing tall despite being several inches shorter than Officer Wilson. "Officer, I'd still like to know why I was pulled over," Maya said, keeping her voice steady. Years of training kicked in. Stay calm, don't escalate, document everything. Wilson's face twisted with anger. "You were swerving, and I think you've been drinking." Maya knew this was completely false. She hadn't touched alcohol in days, and her driving had been perfect. This was a fabrication, plain and simple. "I haven't had anything to drink, Officer Wilson, and I wasn't swerving. Would you be willing to perform a sobriety test?" "I'm happy to comply." Wilson stepped closer, invading her personal space. His breath smelled of coffee and mint gum. "Don't tell me how to do my job." A car slowed as it passed them. Then another. People were watching now. A young woman in a red Honda actually pulled over about 50 feet ahead, phone in hand, likely recording. "Turn around." Hands against the car. Wilson's voice had that dangerous edge that Maya had heard too many times in her career, usually right before things went bad. "Am I under arrest?" Maya asked, still keeping her voice calm while her mind raced. "If so, I'd like to know the charges." Wilson grabbed her arm roughly, spinning her around. "I said hands on the car." Maya winced at his grip but did as instructed, placing her palms flat on the roof of her car. She could feel the cold metal against her hands. She knew what came next, the pat-down. She'd conducted hundreds herself, always professional, always by the book. Wilson's search was anything but professional. His hands lingered too long, pressed too hard. Maya closed her eyes briefly, counting in her head, maintaining her composure. "What's this?" Wilson yanked her purse from the front seat where she'd left it. He dumped its contents onto the hood of her car. Wallet, keys, lipstick, phone, and appointment book scattering across the metal surface. "That's my personal property," Maya said, her voice finally showing a hint of anger. "You need permission or probable cause to search that." "I determine what's probable cause," Wilson snapped, pawing through her belongings. "Look at this fancy wallet. Designer purse. Where'd you get the money for this stuff, huh?" More cars were stopping now. Maya counted 4 people with phones out, recording the scene. Good. Witnesses. Evidence. A business card fell from her wallet. Her police department business card with her rank and division clearly printed. Wilson didn't notice it, focused instead on her driver's license again. "This address. No way you live there honestly," he muttered, just loud enough for her to hear. That was it. The line crossed. Maya turned her head slightly. "Officer Wilson, I'd like to speak with your supervisor." "Now." Wilson laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "My supervisor?" "Lady, you're in no position to make demands." He grabbed her wrists, pulling them behind her back with unnecessary force. The cold metal of handcuffs bit into her skin as he tightened them one click too many. "Officer Wilson, badge number 4876, Maya said loudly, making sure the bystanders could hear. "I want that noted." Wilson spun her around again, his face inches from hers. "You threatening me?" "Not at all," Maya replied, her eyes steady on his. "I'm exercising my rights as a citizen and documenting your behavior." For a split second, something like doubt flickered across Wilson's face, but it vanished quickly, replaced by stubborn anger. "Get in the back of the patrol car," he ordered, grabbing her arm again and marching her toward his vehicle. Maya caught the eye of the woman recording from the red Honda and gave a small nod. The woman nodded back, understanding the silent message, "Keep that camera rolling." As Wilson pushed her head down to force her into the backseat, Maya saw his nameplate again. Officer Derek Wilson. She committed every detail to memory: his face, his badge number, his patrol car number. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting at the precinct. But first, she had to get through tonight. The patrol car's backseat was hard and uncomfortable, the plastic seat worn smooth by countless other people who had sat exactly where Maya was sitting now. The handcuffs bit into her wrists, tightened beyond what was necessary. Maya shifted, trying to find a position that didn't send shooting pain up her arms. Through the mesh divider, she could see Officer Wilson talking into his radio, his back to her. More patrol cars were arriving now. 2 of them pulled up with their lights flashing but sirens off. Maya recognized standard backup procedure. What she didn't recognize was why a simple traffic stop needed 3 police cruisers. A tap on the window startled her. A middle-aged man in a blue jacket stood there, holding up his phone to show he was recording. Maya gave him a small nod of thanks. The man pointed to Wilson, who was busy talking to the newly arrived officers, then made a thumbs-down gesture. More allies. More witnesses. Wilson strode back to the car and yanked open the door. "Your license shows a clean record," he said, sounding almost disappointed. "But you were acting suspiciously, and I found this." He held up a small pocket knife, the one Maya kept in her glove compartment for emergencies. It was perfectly legal blade under 3 inches, not a switchblade. That's a standard utility knife, officer. Completely legal to own. Wilson's face darkened. Not when it's concealed in a vehicle during a traffic stop. Maya knew this was complete nonsense. Carrying a small utility knife was not illegal in this state. Wilson was fishing for charges, manufacturing a reason to justify his behavior. Officer Wilson, Maya said carefully, that knife doesn't meet the state definition of a concealed weapon. You know that. Are you telling me how to do my job again? Wilson grabbed her arm, pulling her roughly from the car. The sudden movement made Maya lose her balance, and she fell hard onto the asphalt, unable to catch herself with her hands cuffed behind her. Pain shot through her shoulder and cheek as they scraped against the rough road surface. She could feel warm blood beginning to trickle down her face. Hey! A woman's voice called out from somewhere nearby. You can't do that. She wasn't resisting. Stay back. Wilson shouted at the small crowd that had gathered. This is police business. Interfere and you'll be arrested for obstruction. One of the other officers, a younger guy with a worried expression, approached Wilson. Everything okay here, Derek? Fine. Just dealing with an uncooperative suspect. Wilson reached down and yanked Maya to her feet by her arm. The pain in her shoulder intensified. I'm not resisting, Maya said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. And I wasn't uncooperative. Officer Wilson pulled me over without cause, searched my vehicle without consent, and is now claiming a legal pocket knife is a concealed weapon. The young officer looked uncomfortable. Maybe we showed. Get the transport ready, Wilson cut him off. She's going in for processing. The third officer, an older man with gray at his temples, was watching the scene with increasing concern. Maya caught his eye, trying to communicate silently. He seemed to sense something wasn't right. Wilson, the older officer, said, maybe we should call the sergeant. For what? A routine arrest? Come on, Tom, I've got this handled. But Officer Tom wasn't looking at Wilson anymore. He was looking at Maya's face more carefully. Something like recognition flickered in his eyes. Ma'am, he said slowly, what's your name again? Before Maya could answer, Wilson cut in. Johnson, Maya Johnson, claims she lives in Oakwood Heights, probably lying. Officer Tom's face changed. Maya Johnson, from the 5th Precinct. Wilson laughed. Yeah, right, and I'm the chief of police. But Tom wasn't laughing. He stepped closer, peering at Maya's face, recognition dawning. Wilson, he said quietly, we need to call the sergeant. Now. Why? Wilson demanded. Tom looked from Maya to Wilson, then back to Maya again. Because I think you just arrested Captain Johnson, from Internal Affairs. The color drained from Wilson's face as the words sank in. Around them, several people in the crowd were still recording, capturing the exact moment when Officer Wilson realized he had made the biggest mistake of his career. The fluorescent lights of the precinct buzzed overhead as Officer Wilson marched Maya through the station doors. Despite Officer Tom's concerns in the field, Wilson had insisted on bringing her in. His pride wouldn't let him back down now. Maya's cheek stung where it had scraped against the pavement, and her shoulder throbbed with each step. The night shift was in full swing at the station. Officers moved about, filling out paperwork and bringing in other suspects. A few glanced their way, then quickly looked again, doing double takes as Maya passed. She recognized most of them, even if they didn't immediately recognize her in civilian clothes with blood on her face. Wilson guided her roughly toward the booking desk where a tired-looking sergeant sat reviewing paperwork. The sergeant didn't look up immediately. Got one for processing, Sarge, Wilson announced, a hint of smugness in his voice. Resisting arrest, concealed weapon, disorderly conduct. The sergeant glanced up, irritation clear on his face at being interrupted. Then his eyes widened, and the pen he was holding clattered to the desk. Captain Johnson. The sergeant stood up so quickly his chair rolled back and hit the wall behind him. Wilson's grip on Maya's arm loosened in surprise. What? Uncuff her, the sergeant ordered, his voice low and urgent. Now, Wilson. Wilson stood frozen, his face a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. Captain. The sergeant came around the desk and quickly unlocked the handcuffs himself. Maya rubbed her wrists, the skin raw and red where the metal had dug in. Captain, I am so sorry, the sergeant said, his face ashen. Are you all right? You're bleeding. Someone get the first aid kit. and call Lieutenant Rivera immediately. The station had gone eerily quiet. Every officer in the room was staring. Some looked shocked, others horrified. A few of the newer officers who didn't know Maya by sight were whispering to each other. "That's Captain Johnson, head of internal affairs. Wilson is so screwed." Maya straightened her blouse, maintaining her composure despite the pain and humiliation. "I'd like to file a complaint, Sergeant, and I'll need the body camera footage from Officer Wilson and the other responding officers preserved immediately." Wilson had backed up against the wall, his face drained of color. "Captain, I mean, you never identified yourself." "Should I have needed to, Officer Wilson?" Maya's voice was calm but carried throughout the now silent room. "Would it have made a difference in how you treated me? Or do you only treat people with respect when you know they have rank?" The front doors of the station burst open and Lieutenant Rivera rushed in, still wearing his dinner jacket. Someone must have called him at home. "Maya, my God, what happened?" Rivera looked from Maya's injured face to Wilson, who seemed to be trying to make himself invisible against the wall. "Lieutenant," Maya acknowledged with a nod. "I was pulled over by Officer Wilson here. He didn't appreciate my asking why I was stopped, so he decided to drag me out of my car, throw me to the ground, and arrest me on fabricated charges." Rivera's face darkened with anger. "In my office. Now, both of you." He turned to the sergeant. "Get the first aid kit to my office and call the chief. This isn't waiting until morning." As Maya followed Rivera toward his office, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the glass door. Blood had dried on her cheek, and her blouse was torn at the shoulder. Her hair, neat when she left work earlier, was now disheveled, but her eyes were clear and focused. Behind her, Officer Wilson followed like a man walking to his execution. Other officers stepped back, creating a path, no one wanting to be associated with him. Wilson's earlier swagger was gone completely. "Officer," one of the desk clerks called out as they passed, "there are about 15 people outside with cell phone videos they want to show the captain. Should I send them in?" Maya turned, meeting Wilson's eyes. "Yes," she said, not breaking eye contact with the man who had assaulted her. "I think we'd all like to see those videos." Wilson looked away first, his future career crumbling before his eyes with each step toward the lieutenant's office. By midnight, the precinct was buzzing like a disturbed beehive. The chief of police had arrived 30 minutes earlier, still wearing sweatpants and a polo shirt, clearly called away from home. The mayor's assistant had phoned twice already. In the conference room, Maya sat with an ice pack on her shoulder, watching as technicians downloaded footage from Wilson's body camera. "Play it again," the chief said, his face grim as he watched the video for the third time. On the screen, they could all see Maya's car pulling over. They heard Wilson's harsh tone, watched as he escalated the situation for no reason. The racial comments were clear, caught perfectly by the microphone he had forgotten was recording everything. "I've seen enough," the chief finally said, stopping the playback. He turned to Maya, genuine concern in his eyes. "How's your shoulder?" "I'll live," Maya replied simply. "The paramedic says nothing's broken, just badly bruised." Lieutenant Rivera entered the room carrying a tablet. "Captain, we've collected 12 videos from bystanders so far. They all show the same thing." He placed the tablet in front of Maya. "And the social media situation is, well, it's exploding." Maya glanced at the tablet. Someone had uploaded their video already. The hashtag Justice for Captain Johnson was trending, along with hashtag Police Brutality and hashtag Accountability Now. The clip had over 50,000 views in just 2 hours. "Where is Wilson now?" Maya asked. "In interview room 3, Rivera answered. "The union rep is with him, but honestly, even he looks disgusted." The door opened and a woman in a sharp suit entered. Annie Chen, the department's head of public affairs, looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past hour. "Chief, Captain," she nodded to both of them. "The mayor wants a statement by 7 a.m. The press is already camped outside, and 3 national news networks have called." The chief rubbed his forehead. "What a nightmare." "No," Maya said firmly, placing the ice pack on the table. "This isn't a nightmare. This is an opportunity." Everyone in the room turned to look at her. "An opportunity?" Chen asked, confusion clear on her face. "Yes." Maya stood up, wincing slightly at the pain in her shoulder. For too long, we've talked about addressing racial bias in policing. We've had seminars and training sessions. We've made promises to the community. But tonight, the head of internal affairs experienced exactly what too many citizens face every day. The room fell silent as her words sank in. I'm not just any victim of police misconduct, Maya continued. I'm in a position to do something about it, and I have the evidence to back it up. She gestured to the paused body camera footage. Wilson didn't know who I was, so he showed his true self. How many other officers are out there doing the same thing? The chief looked uncomfortable. Maya, I know you're upset. I'm not upset, Chief. I'm focused. Maya's voice was steady. Tomorrow, instead of damage control, we're going to announce a full review of all complaints against officers in the past 5 years. We're going to audit the body camera footage. We're going to listen to the community. Chen looked panicked. Captain, we can't just. We can, and we will. Maya picked up her torn blouse that had been placed in an evidence bag. Because if we don't do it now after this, then when? Rivera's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his eyes widened. The videos have hit the national news. CNN is running it now. The chief sighed deeply, then straightened his shoulders. Maya's right. We need to get ahead of this. Chen, draft a statement about transparency and accountability. I want to see it in an hour. Rivera, I want Wilson's complete service record, including every complaint ever filed against him. Maya nodded, a small smile forming despite the pain in her cheek. And I want to meet with community leaders tomorrow. Not to tell them what we're going to do, but to listen to what they need us to do. As the room erupted into action, Maya stepped away to look out the window. Down below, the crowd outside the precinct had grown. People with signs, people with cameras, people demanding change. For years, she had worked within the system, trying to reform it piece by piece. Now, because of one officer's bigotry and one traffic stop gone wrong, she had the world's attention, and she wasn't going to waste it. Camera flashes lit up the room as Maya stepped up to the podium. The press conference room was packed beyond capacity. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder, cameras from every major network pointed at her face. Chief Thomas stood just behind her left shoulder, his expression serious. Maya adjusted the microphone and looked directly into the cameras. The bruise on her cheek was visible despite her attempt to cover it with makeup. She had deliberately worn a short-sleeved blouse that didn't hide the marks on her wrists. Let people see the truth. Good morning, she began, her voice steady. My name is Captain Maya Johnson. I'm the head of internal affairs for this police department. 2 days ago, while driving home from work in my personal vehicle, I was pulled over by Officer Derek Wilson. The room was completely silent as she recounted what had happened, the baseless stop, the racial comments, the excessive force. She didn't sugarcoat anything, but she didn't exaggerate either. Just the facts, delivered in the same clear, professional tone she used in courtrooms when testifying about other cases. What happened to me is not unique, Maya continued. What is unique is that it happened to someone with the power to ensure consequences. After reviewing Officer Wilson's record, we've discovered this was not an isolated incident. There have been 14 similar complaints against him in the past 5 years. A murmur ran through the crowd of reporters. Maya held up a hand for silence. Those complaints were dismissed. The victims were not believed. They didn't have videos or witnesses, or a captain's badge to protect them. They just had their word against an officer's, and in those cases, the system failed them. Chief Thomas stepped forward now. As of this morning, Officer Wilson has been terminated from this department. His case has been referred to the district attorney for possible criminal charges. More camera flashes, more frantic note-taking. A reporter called out, "What about the other officers who responded? Are they facing any consequences?" Maya leaned into the microphone again. Officer Patel recognized the situation was wrong and attempted to de-escalate. However, we're reviewing how long it took for intervention to occur. No officer should stand by when procedures are being violated, regardless of who is involved. Another reporter raised her hand. Captain Johnson, would this outcome be different if you weren't a police officer? If you were just an ordinary citizen? The room fell silent again. It was the question at the heart of everything. I believe it would be very different, Maya answered honestly. And that's exactly why I'm announcing 3 major changes effective immediately. She outlined the new policies: body camera footage would now be reviewed by a team that included civilian oversight. All complaints involving potential racial bias would trigger automatic investigation from a special unit, and most significantly, past complaints dismissed without proper investigation would be reopened, starting with those against Wilson. This isn't just about one bad officer, Maya concluded. This is about a system that allowed him to continue unchecked until he happened to target someone with power. That ends today. As the press conference ended and Maya stepped away from the podium, her phone buzzed. A text from Rivera. Wilson's attorney just called. He wants to make a deal. Maya wasn't surprised. With multiple videos, witness statements, and his own body camera footage, Wilson had no defense. He was facing not just termination but potential criminal charges for assault under color of authority. Outside the station, the crowd had grown even larger, not just reporters now, but community members. Some held signs supporting Maya, while others carried photos of loved ones who had faced similar treatment from police. An older woman approached Maya as she walked to her car. "My son told us for years how officers treated him during traffic stops," the woman said, her eyes brimming with tears. "Nobody believed him. Thank you for speaking the truth." Maya took the woman's hands in hers. "I believe him, and I promise you things are going to change." As she drove home that evening, Maya passed the spot where Wilson had pulled her over. A small memorial had appeared, flowers, candles, and handwritten signs calling for justice. Not for her, but for all those who had suffered similar treatment without cameras or badges to protect them. Maya's phone rang, the district attorney wanting to discuss charges against Wilson. This was just the beginning of a long fight, but for the first time in years, it felt like real change might actually be possible. 3 months had passed since that fateful traffic stop. Maya sat in her office reviewing the latest reports, a cup of coffee cooling beside her keyboard. The wall behind her desk, once bare, now held framed newspaper headlines about the case and the changes that followed. A knock at her door pulled her attention away from the computer screen. Lieutenant Rivera entered, carrying a thick folder. "The final numbers you asked for," he said, placing the folder on her desk. "Thought you'd want to see them before the community meeting tonight." Maya opened the folder and scanned the contents. In the 12 weeks since Wilson's firing, they had reopened 67 past complaints against officers. Of those, 41 had been found valid after proper investigation. 9 officers had been disciplined, 3 had resigned rather than face consequences, and 1, Wilson himself, was now facing criminal charges. "These are good numbers," Maya said, looking up at Rivera. "Real progress. And the new Civilian Oversight Committee is working better than I expected," Rivera admitted. "I was skeptical at first, but having regular people review body camera footage has actually helped officers be more mindful." Maya smiled. That had been her most controversial proposal, allowing civilian representatives to review police conduct. The union had fought it tooth and nail, but with public opinion firmly on Maya's side, after the videos went viral, they'd eventually compromised. "How's Wilson's case going?" Rivera asked, taking a seat across from her. "The DA says he'll likely take a plea deal," Maya replied. "Too much evidence against him. Between the videos and his own body camera, not to mention his record of similar complaints, his lawyer knows they can't win." Her phone buzzed with a text message from Chief Thomas. "News crew waiting downstairs for your interview. Ready when you are." Maya had become the unexpected face of police reform, not just locally but nationally. She'd been interviewed by major networks, invited to speak at conferences, even consulted by other departments implementing similar changes. The attention was uncomfortable at times, but she understood its value. "I should head down," she told Rivera, standing up and smoothing her uniform jacket. "The community meeting is at 7, right?" "Yes, at the community center. We're expecting a big turnout." These monthly meetings had been another of Maya's initiatives, regular forums where community members could speak directly with police leadership about their concerns and experiences. The first few had been tense, filled with anger and distrust built over decades. But slowly, meeting by meeting, conversation by conversation, things were changing. As Maya walked through the station toward the lobby, officers nodded respectfully. Some had initially resented her for the scrutiny her case had brought to the department, but most had come to understand that the changes benefited everyone. Improving community trust made their jobs safer too. In the lobby, she spotted a familiar face, the woman with curly hair who had recorded the original video of her encounter with Wilson. She now served on the Civilian Oversight Committee. "Captain Johnson," the woman greeted her. "Thought I'd stop by before the meeting tonight. The committee reviewed 20 hours of body camera footage this week." "Find anything concerning?" Maya asked. "Actually, no. That's the good news. We're seeing much better interactions across the board." The woman smiled. "The training program you implemented seems to be working." Outside, a small crowd of people waited near the station entrance. Not protesters anymore, but community members who had become stakeholders in the reform process. Maya recognized many faces, people who had shared their own stories of mistreatment at community meetings, now working alongside the department to create change. A young reporter stood with her cameraman, ready for the interview. "Captain Johnson, can we get your thoughts on the department's progress since the incident?" Maya took a deep breath. "It's not my progress to claim. This has been a community effort. What happened to me was terrible, but it created an opportunity that many people have worked hard to make meaningful." As the camera began rolling, Maya thought about how differently this could have ended. If Wilson had recognized her that night, he might have let her go with an insincere apology. The complaints against him would have remained buried. Nothing would have changed. Sometimes justice came from unexpected places. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best outcomes. And sometimes being in the wrong place at the wrong time turned out to be exactly where you needed to be.